The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Anti-hero, moralist, or destroyer of the culture. It doesn't matter how you want to look at him. What is true is that dancehall's Pied Piper Vybz Kartel played a merry tune for his fans at his Freedom Street concert on New Year's Eve. The bigger question is, what does the reception to Freedom Street say about the health of dancehall music? And what does it say about how Jamaicans want to see and view those who they would venerate to iconic status? I had that discussion this evening with an eminent professor of music right here on Lead Story CVM TV. Let's start the show. Welcome to Lead Story here on CVM TV on this Tuesday, January 7, 2025. Just happens to be the birthday of one Adija Azim Palmer. You know him as Vybz Kartel, and it is not by design that we're talking about Kartel on today, which would be what, his 48th birthday? Yes, he is getting on in years, even though he's wearing a kind of maturity which suggests that he is growing into his advanced years. Well, not advanced years, as my director is telling me that he's actually 49. Yeah, so 49th birthday for Vybz Kartel. He certainly carries himself like a 49-year-old man. And so today we talk about Freedom Street, the concert that happened on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, which so many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, flocked the National Stadium to be a part of. A historic occasion, 13 years and a change behind bars Kartel spent. We all know the issue with the murder of Clive Lizard Williams and how the court ruled that the process by which the court used to determine his conviction was flawed, and it was on those grounds that he was released. Kartel spent time, still made music. His legend grew, yeah? His reputation expanded, and upon his arrival, his release from prison, many people were just waiting for the concert date to be announced. And when that date was announced, the National Stadium was announced, a frenzy was the word to describe the trade of events from that point forward. Now, many people have had much to say about the concert. We won't analyze how the concert went. For us, it's a bigger discussion that we're having. We're talking about the cultural significance of dancehall music in 2025. Is it still culturally relevant? Now that Vybz Kartel is out, does the culture and does dancehall music get something back? Does it once again rely on one of its best ever exponents to advance the music, to bring it back, to bring it to new territories and to re-establish it in those spaces where it has been argued to have lost relevance? Does Vybz Kartel hold the key, even one of the keys, or does he have a hand on the key to turn the lock that will unlock the market space for dancehall music once again? Those are the discussions that I want to have. Those are the questions I want to pose to the Professor of Culture, Gender and Entertainment at the UWI, Professor Donna Hope. In short order, we'll be hearing from her. What we will do, we will go to a package that we have prepared, and we will go to that in short order, but just also to ask the question, how do we like our heroes? You do know what an anti-hero is as opposed to a hero. A hero is the person who does everything well, venerated by all, lives the clean life, and is the person that you will ask your children to emulate. The anti-hero would be something different, still capable of doing the feat, still capable of accomplishing the feats that the hero can accomplish, still possessing some of the virtues that the hero possesses, but also having some characteristics that the hero does not and would not want to have, and still having some and still have some qualities that you would say, you wouldn't want that at all. That is no moral guide, that is no moral example to follow, but still the person's capacity for great accomplishments still puts them in the hero category. So you can't call him a straight-laced hero, you have to go anti-hero. Is Vybz Kartel that? Well, the package isn't ready and we're not going to take it this evening. We're going to go straight to Professor Hope, who joins me this evening. She is rightly regarded in many spaces as the ultimate academic authority on this thing called dancehall music. Good evening, Professor Hope. Welcome to Lead Story once again, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, George. Happy New Year to your team. And of course, good evening and thank you for having me. And I hear you giving me all kinds of titles. I accept them with grace.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Professor Hope, December 31, 2024, we anticipated, we waited, we wondered what we would see. Through your lens, what did you actually see play out inside the National Stadium, Vybz Kartel and his collaborators?
Well, George, that I tend to do a lot of research in a very participatory way, so I had to be physically present because what you see on a live stream is a very specific point of view. So a very small point of view of the entire event. So I was physically present and I attended this concert in the same way I attended Buju Banton's first concert when he came out from incarceration because I wanted to see the audience response and the overall, acoustics, the overall dynamics of the event. And for me, Vybz Kartel event was, as I described it, a celebration of his return by people who are loyal to him, by people who love him, his collaborators, his mentees, people who groomed him, people who are part of his early, his career, and by people standing in the audience who wanted to see him return to that stage and deliver the kind of hits that they had learned and loved over the career that he had built up prior to going in prison and during and after. And so what was happening there was a celebration of his liberation, his freedom, but also a celebration of his return to the culture, to the entertainment, to his family and friends, and to making music that resonates with a wide cross-section of people. That is what I saw.
Excellent. Professor Hope, I've never in my time seen a period, and I was born in the 80s, just around the time when dancehall music was starting to take shape. And I've never seen a period when dancehall music was celebrated as a very good thing, or at the time, dancehall music was said to be going places. Dancehall music has always had to fight against the doom and gloom mongers who said, this isn't positive, this isn't going where, this doesn't represent the best reflection of Jamaican music, this is not a vehicle to advance the culture. And yet here we are, 40 odd years later, still talking about dancehall music. What does the Kartel concert and the events attendant to it say about the health of this genre?
Well, the genre is alive, the genre is well. Kartel's return has injected a wave, I think, of elevation in the dancehall culture because remember, George and listeners and viewers, that dancehall culture usually has one or two leaders, people at the helm that, directs the flow of the music, direct the flow of the performances, kind of spur on lyrical battles that, generate a lot of new music forms. And that has been absent since Kartel has been incarcerated. People have come up and have been doing their thing, but that figure or two figures usually at the helm of dancehall has been missing. There's a vacuum that has been there. And you remember that, subsequent to Kartel being incarcerated, that many of the artists who came up after him kept on calling for World Boss, World Boss. They saw him as a kind of leader even while he was locked away. And there was that vacuum that he stepped back in and filled. And that has been pulling and pushing a lot of attention to dancehall and has brought a lot of new energy into dancehall culture that for the creation of the music, for the pushing of the culture is a very positive move.
People pine after what they don't readily have access to. You recall very well the based on my experience as a university student at the time, the hysteria around Free Jacure, and you had random people all over the world wearing Free Jacure t-shirts, people who you wouldn't trust to recognize Sikaturi Alcock Jacure if they saw him walking in any part of the city that they were a part of. But you had this feeling around Free Jacure, and Jacure got a kind of love and adulation that you didn't see him get post his incarceration, even though, of course, he was a superstar. The point I'm making is this. Cartel achieved things behind bars, the Fever single and the number of units it streamed and its status as a gold-selling single. He did things behind bars with his music that eluded him when he was outside before 2013 when he went in. So I say that to ask, are we to expect that he can do and move the units and grace the stages and elevate the music in the way some people are almost willing him to do on the evidence that we've seen so far?
Well, remember, that when people are in the culture, music culture, we've seen this in hip hop, for example, when people in the music cultures are incarcerated, again, that kind of anti-hero status is more solidified and magnified because there's a kind of battle with the status quo in the society, and many persons outside of the prison walls are going to see them now as some kind of hero that pushes against the status quo. So you do get a lot of attention to whatever the artist is able to do inside of prison. Jack Hero got a lot of that. Buju Banton, however, was unfortunately unable to push any music out during his incarceration, so he did not get that. But what it does is that it sort of engorges bigger the mythical status of this person. It's almost like they're kind of fantasy, something that is beyond life, larger than life. And when they return, there is always a groundswell of support, but simultaneously with the undercurrent of negation. Buju Banton faced the same thing when he came out. People were anti-Buju, because of his incarceration, because of his challenges that he went into prison for, but he still got a huge groundswell of support. So that euphoria pulls and pushes a lot of attention, and the artists tend to respond. So I do expect that Cartel will rise to the occasion as he's doing. And that, for example, you see as Grace the cover of Billboard, he's going to Cologne Summer Jam, he's booked all over. That is usually how it works, because the attention, the interest in what he's doing, how he's able to do it, and the fact that he has risen the crest of this incarceration, all the challenges to who he is, and continue to make music that people respond to, and perform his own life in a very open way for his fans and followers and detractors, makes him a very striking figure in a world we are living in a world where images is what we look for. We want to see everybody's business. Cartel has been throwing that out and people are responding. So he will continue to do extremely well and to hit those stratospheric marks for the next few years.
Do you get the sense, Professor Hope, that post his release, there have been some people, I don't want to say many, but some people, who've been sitting, holding their breath, waiting for him to commit an infraction again, waiting for him to be what they pronounced him to be at the point of his arrest, charge, and incarceration. People waiting for him to live up to the kind of flawed individual who society should shun kind of image. Do you think that there's a lot of that at play, or even some of that at play?
There is a great deal of that, and if you look at what happened prior to the Freedom Street concert, a lot of people were afraid to go to the concert. I have good evidence of that, narrative evidence. People flew in from outside of Jamaica and were afraid to go because of what people in Jamaica said to them. The earth was going to crack in two, fire and brimstone would rain down. Literally, people were not. And I had to convince people. I said, okay, they came with me and my team because apparently I'm some special person and could protect them, but they were afraid to go to the concert because of that kind of detraction that was going on and the kind of negative talk around it. It would be something bad, you would be harmed, we should go to church. It was a lot of conversations, and Vybz Kartel himself has been facing a lot of flack. Yes, people have been waiting for him to trip up and fall. And so, for example, when that moment happened on the Freedom Street stage with Popcorn, Law Boss, and Scatter, I was very grateful for his maturity in dealing with the matter on stage as a leader in that group of people, to ensure that, even before you could see him being very mature, and even post the event, he has been dealing with it in a very humorous way, because of course he knows and understands his role, and he knows and understands that he's under intense scrutiny, and he has to step up to the higher level and be the kind of leader that can carry the culture and the music to another level.
Hear you on that. Hold the point right there, Professor Hope. Going to continue this conversation after these. This is Lead Story here on CVM TV. On Vybz Kartel's birthday today, January 7.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
Months after Vybz Kartel was released in April 2024, patrons question when will the show to celebrate his freedom occur? Well, very soon after, Down Sound Records, the company responsible for hosting Reggae Sumfest, was announced as the promoter for the show that would have been titled Freedom Street to mark the return of the man who dominated dancehall for years. It's almost impossible to ignore the contribution of Vybz Kartel on music and popular culture. Some of the most notable evidence is the spawning of successful proteges such as Popcorn, Tommy Lee, Ja Vinci, the proliferation of Clarks, and the more notorious influences such as skin bleaching. The trial of the DJ itself was a pop culture moment to behold. It turned some journalists into stars and brought creative ways of conveying courtroom happenings to the airwaves. With the impact of a potent career in hardcore dancehall and impact with global tentacles, the National Stadium was the most fitting venue to keep a show, with the comparisons being other historical moments held at the stadium, such as the Bob Marley One Love Peace concert and one of Kartel's musical influences, Buju Banton, who made his musical freedom debut at the National Stadium in 2019. Emerging from below the stage, the man called the world boss, and some even crowning him the new king of dancehall, emerged to cheers and commenced the reunion of the Gaza Empire. Minutes before ringing in the new year, the new queen of dancehall emerged to the stage, robed in her true dancehall garb, to perform the culturally shifting raw collaboration Romping Shop, which was notoriously banned from the airwaves. But in true dancehall form, the king of the dancehall's return showcase was not immune from controversy and conflict, despite a noticeable calm demeanor from the man whose career has featured potently violent lyrics. It was his proteges, Popcorn and Chronic Law, who registered their discontent with the event organizers with expletives, riotous diction, and aggressive cadence in their delivery of their hits, which seemed to serve both the crowd and their intent to send a message to the event organizers, eventually evolving into a physical altercation. So what about the crowds? Well, the official numbers have not been released, but based on a cursory view of the stadium, it did not outperform Long Walk to Freedom or the One Love Peace concert. But undisputably, dancehall in its rawest and purest form was on display on the 360 stage centered at the National Stadium, delivered by one of dancehall's most prolific lyricists and personalities to ever enter the game. What is the cultural impact of this show? Well, we discuss here on Lead Story. Courtney Lewis for Lead Story.
And we've been well underway. We've been well underway with that discussion with Professor Donna Hope. Professor Hope, I've been toying with framing a question in my head, and as a journalist, I have a responsibility to not lose any of my viewers. So I'm going to lean on you for help with the context. I know you know your music. So as I watched that piece and I saw the different images that Vybz Kartel forged over his career to now to this point, I said to myself, I'm seeing some striking similarities here between how Kartel has forged an image at various points in his career to the British superstar David Bowie. And I'm thinking of the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, that album, and how Bowie himself transformed himself over the years, different figures, different image as his music came forth. But even he hit a creative roadblock at some point, and then he became an artist who, rather than producing new music to wow the now generation, leaned heavily on his back catalogue, toured, sang his old songs, and moved on into his dotage. Is there any expectation to think that Kartel won't go the same route?
Well, I mean, an artist's life, regardless of the genre, is usually a cycle. They all have a life cycle. And usually it has a lot to do with the timeline of their own journey. So they start as young artists, not age-related, but the timeline that they are in their own career. And as they get more mature in their career, then they begin to sort of slow down from some of those, while you're talking about the controversial stagings, the performance of their identity in different ways, pushing against the career, the society, and pushing against one of the social taboos. Eventually, people mature, and some things are either left behind or become, as you say, a kind of nostalgic look back. So, we probably want to sing the songs, we probably won't live that image in that full some way. It happens with everyone. People mature, and other people take their space. And in time, we can already see the strings of maturity hovering over Vybz Kartel. They step up into this elder statesman lifestyle, and they become more cemented in their career. And then, of course, the society tends to absorb them more fulsomely, as we see the polarizing of Kartel versus other artists who have led similar or related lives. It happens, and it is a part of that life cycle of an artist whose role, in a lot of ways, George and viewers, is to push against the society, to shake up the society in a lot of instances, to make the society think about itself and to face some of the issues that we have as a society, stir up the pot. Vybz Kartel has done a lot of stirring over his career. That pot boiled over many times.
Yeah, and of course I have to commend the viewers to the book that you're showing beside you, Dancehall Queen, written in both English and Spanish. I have a copy, and it was bought, so you have to spend your money to support the culture. Professor Hope, I ask you this: does dancehall need a savior, and is this iteration of Vybz Kartel it?
Well, and when we come into the savior motif, and one of my responders on Facebook, a clergyman, reminded me of some of the motifs in my little piece. So we're talking about it almost in a kind of religious frame. Saving from what? From immorality, from indecency, from youthful exuberance, because a lot of what the artists do in their earlier iterations are really based on being young, being unexposed. Many of them are coming from inner cities and different kinds of locations. And as they mature, they move away and move into other forms. So a savior, someone to pull it together, someone to direct the kind of flow of discussion. We have had a lot of artists on the ground who are doing a lot of work. But again, as I said, the kind of attention and the kind of pull that Vybz Kartel has is phenomenal. Above and beyond any of the artists that are in the current era. Vybz Kartel pulls attention from artists, from people in the culture, from people outside of Jamaica, and from Jamaicans in all walks of life, whether they are detractors or they are supporters. So he has a role, a massive role at hand, and he has work to do to pull together in a lot of ways what we have in dancehall culture and streamline some of it, while we move through the younger artists who are coming forward. We have about 6 or 8, about 8 or so generations of dancehall culture now. A new form has evolved: dancehall, trap dancehall. All of these things are in the mix. And of course, the discussions are changing as we sit here and speak about the culture.
In 30 seconds, Professor Hope, when Popcorn said what he said, giving Scatter the dubious distinction of being told that thing, the first man in public to be told that thing in 2025, and Chronic Law added to it, did you hold your breath fearing for the worst and for something in keeping with what usually happens at a big dancehall event?
We were in the crowd. We saw what happened. People were excited and carrying on, jubilation, because this is a part of the play and the act that takes place in hardcore dancehall events. For me and my team, I know what happens at dancehall events when that kind of excitement. And so I actually said to them, we are heading that way, because the stage became very tense. And so that's something that, because I have been going to dancehall events for more than 3 decades, I know how it can spill over into the crowd if it's not properly managed, which is why I commend Cartel in particular for trying, and other persons, Nitty Kochi and others were on the stage, making sure that they dampened that, even though, of course, the show ended shortly after Tommy Lee and Skem came on stage because of that. But I was fearful that it might spill over into the crowd. The crowd, however, seemed to be more caught up with celebrating at this, carrying on in that anti-hero celebratory status, booming and carrying on and shouting and lighters and phoners, because for them it's a part of the push and pull of a dancehall celebration, a hardcore one, kind of like a sting kind of quality, that rough cathartic expression, giving off something that is negative and pushing back with the kind of energy. But I was concerned, and so we started to make our way. I'm like, let's go, because I knew that it could spill over. It did not, and for that I commend all the parties involved, Scatter and everyone who allowed it to be dampened in that moment on stage. Very important.
Well, she's a co-author of Dancehall Queen, and when it comes to dancehall music, man or woman, she is the foremost authority on the subject. I want to thank you for your time this evening, Professor Hope, and I wish you all the best for 25, and we'll talk again.
We'll talk again, and of course, happy birthday to Vibes Cartel, 49 years under your belt. Your family and friends are happy. We wish you all the best. Continue to work for the positive enhancement of dancehall culture.
Excellent. Well, I leave you with this. The advertisement of the existing love for dancehall music, that was big and bold at Freedom Street. The genre is not dead. The genre can't die. Forget those who say, oh, dancehall music is that, it's this and that. They've been saying that since inception, and we're still here talking about it. The now generation will sustain it. When you get older, you look at the current state of the music and you're not pleased. You don't like the lyrics. You disapprove of the artists, the way they carry themselves, forgetting that when you were young, the artists that you liked, the songs that you listened to, the lyrics that guided you, people older than you were saying the same things you're saying now about it then when you were younger and enjoying it. So I'm just saying it's a cyclical thing, and we need to just get on with it. I make way now for Nika Lewis with the news at 7, and I can tell you she is quite an authority on Vibes Cartel music. She's singing a song right now. It's a pity, well, it's a good thing that the microphone isn't turned on, or else her boss would be very, very cross with her. The news at 7 comes up next. That's my time. I'll see you all being equal on Wednesday.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8.
And at CVM TV News. And at CVM TV News. Anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
You can open a Sagicor Bank savings account from anywhere. Go online and open yours today.
The Time by Sagicor Bank.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, residents protest police killing in Lawrence Tavern. Body-worn camera back in focus after police shootings. Jessie Ripoll coping with the loss of school principal. And in the business report, Port Royal development plans and PPPs. While in sports, Sunshine Girls versus South Africa series exclusively on CVM TV. From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. I'm Nika Lewis. It's Tuesday, January 7, 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. Residents of Lawrence Tavern in St. Andrew took to the streets in protest following the fatal police shooting of a man last week. The incident has sparked outrage among residents and relatives who are now demanding justice and accountability. We hear more from Britannia Witter.
Door the right here, so the back door, and they murder Andrew. Me hear the shot them and me hear when Andrew ball out one time. I mean I hear him again, but we never know so they shoot him because him so coward. Me think a friend in front when me hearing girlfriend start ball, but me still never know so they shoot him.
Crying for his relative, a resident of Mason Drive, Lawrence Tavern, and struggling to accept the reality that 39-year-old Andrew Richards, a shop owner and a laborer, was killed by the police on Friday, January 3. It's alleged that a weapon was found on Richards during a police operation in the area. But members of his family say that's simply not true.
So I really want them to know still say Andrew innocent. I want Jamaica people to know some community. In my community, me at all. No, my community now run right. You understand me? But Andrew is an innocent person. I mean, I want the Jamaica people, his hungry name I want to clear off of the murderer thing. I'm going to murder him. He's an innocent, decent citizen. So Jamaica, if Andrew did a criminal, Lawrence Tavern police would have come for him themselves.
Bearing placards that suggested Andrew was killed in cold blood, scores of residents marched in the community demanding accountability from the Jamaica Constabulary Force. One resident says she has lost all trust in law enforcement.
Police officers, they don't mean us any good. They don't mean Jamaica any good. As far as I see it, if the representation of the police that were here is a representation of the force itself, I can only say there are no good police that are in the force. That's genuinely how I feel.
Meanwhile, Councillor for the division, John Mayers, described the deceased as a hardworking individual.
Knowing him, I see him to be a very distant, honest person, work hard, and when I visit over there, when his grandmother died, I call him son. And I feel in it because, you know, he was there with me on the veranda and we were laughing and everything.
Residents called for the relevant stakeholders to intervene.
This cannot happen like this. No one to stand up for justice. They're not here to protect and serve. We're calling on the Commissioner of Police. We're calling on the Prime Minister. We're calling on the Minister of National Security, Minister of Justice. We're calling on them. We're sensible people. We're no animals. And the way they treated us that day, they treated us like animals. They talk to us any way they want to. And that is not right.
Justice, Andrew! Justice! Justice!
The Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, has launched a probe into the fatal shooting. Britannia Witter, CVM News.
And 3 fatal police shootings in less than a week are raising questions about law enforcement accountability and the use of force. The latest incident in Negril, Westmoreland involves a man who was fatally shot after allegedly trying to disarm a police officer during a routine vehicle check. Ramon Gordon has the details.
3 fatal police shootings have renewed scrutiny of law enforcement operations. The latest occurred in Negril, Westmoreland, where a man was killed after allegedly attempting to disarm a police officer at a vehicle checkpoint on Tuesday. Assistant INDICOM Commissioner Hamish Campbell says the recent spike in fatal shootings reflects a troubling trend.
We recognise that others have different views and the police have got a very hard task to complete in this country. But at the same time, there is a requirement to comply with the principles and protocols of reasonable use of force and proportionality, and for openness to be made available to us when we conduct our investigations. And that's why we've gone on all last year about the wearing of body-worn cameras.
Campbell says the lack of active body-worn cameras has been a persistent issue, sometimes hindering investigations.
In those cases where body-worn cameras have been worn or reported as having been worn in shooting incidents, we've then discovered that none of them have been turned on. And that is a remarkable feature of the use of body-worn cameras, that where the person is shot and killed or injured, it's not turned on.
In November, Prime Minister Andrew Holness reaffirmed support for body-worn cameras in the JCF, contrasting the National Security Minister's earlier doubts about their effectiveness in violent confrontations. Last year, Jamaica recorded 189 police killings, the highest in a decade. Nearly half were linked to planned operations.
And that's what we would hope to see a change in. That these shootings, these planned operations need to be conducted in a different manner, in a different way, to secure life, bring these gunmen to court with the guns that are reportedly found with them.
Tuesday's incident in Negril is now part of Indicom's growing caseload.
The other man who was in the car, he in turn was arrested. So he's still a living witness to the events, we hope, or may not be. So the inquiry is very much ongoing at this stage, but that's the basic facts that we have at this time.
Ramon Gordon for CVM News.
Meanwhile, the Manchester police are reacting to Monday's tragedy where lawmen took drastic measures to save another civilian from his son. The incident left the son dead and his father hospitalized. Trisha Gay Kelly has this follow-up.
An investigation has been launched into a police shooting on Monday, which led to the death of Okeri Gale, a man said to be of unsound mind who hailed from Mandeville, Manchester. Gale was shot and killed following unheeded directives from the police. The officers responded to calls of a bloody family dispute where Gale was seen chopping his 77-year-old father with a machete. Both were brought to hospital where Okeri died and his father is being treated. Commanding officer for the parish, Deputy Superintendent Kerry Duncan, says there's a need for more humility among civilians.
This very unfortunate incident really underscores the importance of persons to find amicable and mature way to treat with disputes. There are so many agencies that are available to assist in these areas. So we speak about the CSSB department at my police station, chaplains and justices of the peace, and the restorative justice centers that are available.
And in the midst of the storm, the commanding officer is preaching peace.
The relevant persons were contacted and the matter is now being investigated by the Independent Commission of Investigation. I just want to implore persons that to raise their level of intellect when treating with disputes, and in order to be violent, find more peaceful and amicable way to deal with these incidents.
The lawmen fired multiple warning shots to prevent Gale from killing his father. And despite some backlash, DSP Duncan is commending his team for their timely response.
As a matter of fact, the officers who responded were on their way almost off duty, and when they got the call, they immediately turned back and went, and in record time was at the location. And had it not been for that prompt response, I am almost certain that the situation would have been far worse than it turned out to be.
Trisha Gay Kelly, CVM News.
Well, in other news, the Jessie Ripoll primary school family gathered today for the new school year after the tragic loss of their principal, O'Neill Stevens. Mr. Stevens and his wife, Kamisha Lindsay, died after being struck by an alleged drunk driver while tending to their disabled vehicle in the United States. Well, despite the tragedy, the school is standing resilient as the Education Ministry continues to provide support. We hear now from our reporter Courtney Lewis, who visited the school today.
It wasn't the usual New Year morning for the Jessie Ripoll Primary School, as hundreds of parents and stakeholders gathered on this compound, offering their support to one another and to the students as they mourn the loss of their beloved principal, O'Neill Stevens. Behind me, a memorial for the principal, who they describe as a stalwart in the field.
The country has been robbed of a visionary leader, one who was transformative, one who had so much plans for the school.
He doesn't just see you in the moment. He's always looking beyond that. And for me, that's probably one of the greatest lessons that I'm going to take from him.
Parents, teachers, and even past principals recall their fondest memories of Mr. Stevens. One sentiment shared was the principal's caring nature, as he knew each of his students by name. The vice principal called Stevens an easygoing family man, always encouraging the school family with his open-door policy.
There's never a dull moment with us, even when we have our meetings, and some of them can be a bit much, difficult, challenging. But we do, one of our things that we have together is sense of humor. It is what helps to get through most of our days here.
Despite a tearful devotion ceremony, the school body is looking forward to healing.
We're comforting each other step by step, and everything is going good. Our teacher is breaking down in tears, but everybody is right beside us because we all have the same feeling.
I'll tell them to just keep their heads up. It's just God's way of seeing things.
We have to keep moving forward, motivating our students as they too are going through what has happened. So we are navigating now, especially with our PEP students, to ensure that there's some level of calmness and peace going towards this exam.
The Education Ministry deployed over 70 care professionals to support students, along with the aid of visiting principals and the parents, many of whom stayed throughout the school day.
As much as the school says, we have to get back to the business of the children, the parents are lingering so they can do whatever they can to make sure anywhere they're needed, they are present.
As for the way forward,
but we are fueled by his passion. We are fueled by his legacy of excellence. So our school will continue. This is a school that is known not to fail.
But we're going to live on and we're going to be okay. The memories, the dreams, we'll hold them high.
He was just eager to learn, and that was what of the beauty of that man.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Mark Golding also paid a visit to the school today, offering his condolences and sympathies to the staff and students. Golding lamented the tragedy, saying the loss is a big blow as the nation loses one of its finest leaders in education.
Circumstances of his passing and that of his wife are unimaginably tragic, and our hearts go out to his family members, his children and other family members who have been left behind to bear the grief of that loss, and of course his school family. And having said that, just entering this school, one feels the positive spirit of the children outside. Yes, they are grieving too, but they're doing it, in a positive way, and we know that their futures are bright and there's great hope for tomorrow, even though yesterday was so sad. So I just say to each and every one of you, life has these events. We all go through them from time to time. We can't understand them. The mysteries of God's universe are beyond our comprehension. But we have to accept that this is part of the journey that we're on. And as hard as it is, God gives us the resilience with his support and through faith to overcome all of these things. And we must move forward. That is what Mr. Stevens would want, I'm sure of it. Had he been asked, or if he's looking on, he would say, yes, Jessie Ripoll, the institution must continue to lead the way among Jamaica's primary schools.
There's more to come on CVM News at 7 right after this break.
7 Tuesday, brought to you by KFC.
Anything for the taste of a juicy, crunchy, irresistible KFC big deal. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
You! Come and pick up your order.
Oh, okay.
For the juicy, crunchy, irresistible taste of a KFC big deal, some people will do anything.
Come rise with sunrise. It's your midweek Mighty Takeover. We'll get started by stepping into our spiritual season with Father Holong in Wednesday service. Then we set our sights on the future with the Vision 2000 project. Calling all book lovers, we'll have you hooked from cover to cover in Sunrise Book Club. And we'll wrap things up with a furry treat in Wags. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Thanks for staying with us. The Education Ministry is forging ahead for the new school year, celebrating its latest strides to improve learning and academic performance. But some education stakeholders are still concerned about the issue of teacher migration, a persistent concern in the headlines last year. Courtney Lewis looks back.
As the new school term begins, the Education Ministry is announcing its latest accomplishments in the areas of technology and inclusivity. Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon says improvement is ongoing, especially for students preparing to sit their primary exit profile exam.
Over 680 schools have been connected to the national broadband network, providing low-cost, reliable internet. This term, eLearning Jamaica will be rolling out hundreds of interactive smartboards and thousands of laptop devices across Jamaica. Over $1.3 billion have been spent to construct ramps, handrails, and retrofit door openings and sanitary areas for students with special needs. Furthermore, 595 special needs shadows have been deployed to support our special needs students.
She also announced the continued collaboration with schools to host math camps for the remainder of January, as per the National School Learning Improvement Plan, all while encouraging students and teachers to capitalize on resources. Meanwhile, the president-elect of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Mark Malava, is reiterating the issue of teacher migration and its impact on learning.
My challenge, my issue is the fact that the Ministry of Education continues to be tone deaf to the issue of teacher migration and responding to it in the way that they ought to. But nonetheless, we will continue our advocacy and our agitation to get the government collectively to speak to those issues going forward.
He adds schools have been resilient, but the ministry must examine the data to address the concerns.
Having teachers, suitably qualified teachers in the classroom that are prepared to engage these students, it continues to be a major problem or challenge within our schools. I know principals continue to press on. I know teachers continue to press on, but there comes a point in time when the ministry has to make an about face and start to have very upfront and honest conversations about how it is that we treat with these issues.
Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
On the hotel scene, the workers and management of Round Hill Hotel Villas in Westmoreland continue to dispute over profit share agreements. However, Adrian Williams gives the update as the Minister of Tourism has chimed in on the matter.
Employees and management of Round Hill Hotel and Villas in Negril, Westmoreland are still at loggerheads over a long-standing dispute on how the profit share should be distributed. CVM News understands that Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett has chimed in on the matter. This is why Assistant National Island Supervisor for the National Workers Union NWU, Alexander Nicholson, is demanding answers.
What is his reason of intervening? Is it a political one or is it one of conflict of interest? Because as per Section 32 of the Labour Relations and Industrial Dispute Act, the Minister of Labour can only intervene in a dispute.
The Minister of Tourism?
The Minister of Labour
right.
can only intervene in a dispute if it is a matter of national interest. This is a private matter, not a government entity.
But to what extent has the tourism minister become involved?
It says in the event the union is not agreeable to the proposed settlement, then as suggested by the Honourable Minister of Tourism, Minister Edmund Bartlett, we are proposed to seek guidance from financial and legal professionals. Now we are saying, what is Mr. Bartlett's intervention? Where would the workers go to get redress? If any minister can intervene in a dispute which is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Labour.
Nicholson is adamant on clarity, as prior discussions between the union and the hotel's management are seemingly going nowhere.
At the first meeting, they would have put 1.5 million US on the table. We have said to them to put that figure in writing so that we could better understand what they are proposing. When that was put in writing, the figure was decreased to 800,000. And we're saying, but you can't, in a negotiation, put an offer on the table and then when asked to put it in writing, you then decrease.
Adrian Williams reporting for CVM News.
There's much more to come after this break.
It's been 3 years.
Come on, D. I have it. Let's go.
My baby. Son of my baby. Oh my goodness. Them feeding you over there though? Your favorite. Welcome home, son.
This is home.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing. And the people them I say we are my show tonight. Oh, what a feeling. Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Hey you know all the people in your business?
You should take advantage of CVM TV's unbeatable small business advertising package. Trust me.
And get your goods and services in front of your customers today.
For $150,000, you get a high-quality professional commercial.
Plus 20 prime-time commercial spots.
That's massive exposure at a fraction of the cost.
Including on the #1 morning show in Jamaica, Sunrise.
So don't wait. Call us on 658-208-5377 and see your business goals happen right here on CVM Television.
Welcome back. It's now time for the Business Report with Joel Crosskill.
Lots to share with you in the business report today, as it relates to the redevelopment plans for Port Royal, which today witnessed the commissioning ceremony for the Port Royal Pipeline Replacement Project, designed to provide the historic location with potable water. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who delivered the keynote address, outlined the strategy behind the development of what was once known as the richest and wickedest city in the world into a world-class destination.
You're going to see more hotels come. You're going to see the restaurants improve, and we are going to make the investments, not to displace the people who are here, who have built an industry, a name and a brand, but to support them further in improving and expanding their product, so that when we talk about Port Royal as a destination now, this is going to be the place where people will choose to come and have their festivals and concerts, where cruise ships will come to explore the rich history that is here in their various museums. Even cemeteries are a place where people come to visit. We have such wealth of historical sites that we can develop. So Port Royal is going to become a new economic hub for Kingston. It will add to our GDP. It will create revenues which will more than pay back for the over $2 billion worth of investment that we have made when you add up everything together. And it will last us, it will give us a 20, 30, 40-year run of revenues from which we now can use to give water to people in other areas of Jamaica. So that is the strategy of the government. And no one can say that the investment in Port Royal will not yield results for the country.
While that is likely the case, there are questions being raised regarding the rate at which it's likely to take place, as Robert Stevens, a director of the Port Royal Development Company Limited, which is currently in court with the government regarding a breakdown in a PPP arrangement for Port Royal's development, describes a scenario that could see the complete development of the space in a matter of years.
We came up with a plan, which was an all-inclusive plan where we would develop the town of Port Royal, including all the infrastructure, the houses, the facilities that were in the town, and then add to it. We would add attractions, we would add restaurants, we would add various things that you could, shops, etc. And the idea was that we were going to do a comprehensive development of Port Royal, including a sunken city museum. The fact is that what has happened is that the government has taken over the project, ignored the joint venture that we had, and decided to do it on their own, but they're doing it piecemeal. The driver has got to be a private-public partnership, because the amount of money that is required, government cannot find that money to come up with to do the project one time. What they would have to do is stretch it out over 20 years. Which is exactly what is happening now. We need to view Port Royal as the beginning of the development of the historical triangle of Port Royal, downtown Kingston, and Spanish Town. And in order to really bring that to life, you have to link all three with a ferry service. And the ferry service was to link downtown Kingston with Portmore, with Port Royal. And the idea was you could move around the harbour freely and visit all the attractions that you have, not just in Port Royal, but downtown Kingston as well as in Portmore area, you know. You could go to the beach, for instance, over by Helsha. So the whole idea of developing just a cruise ship pier, and now you're putting in a pipeline to go to Port Royal to give them fresh water, is, as I said, doing it piecemeal.
Stevens estimates the total cost of completion at between $300 to $400 million US, with a timeline of between 2 to 3 years if allowed to execute on the vision.
Reality is this, you know, that Port Royal was declared a historical site and is applying now for World Heritage Site status. But what needs to be done is when you present that plan, you have to present a comprehensive plan of development as well as management of the area. And as far as I'm aware, that has not been done.
The Port Royal Development Company director suggests that greater attention must be paid to encouraging the capacities of local tourism entrepreneurs, or risk losing out on the best aspects of Jamaica's public-private partnership framework.
It's not just 1,000-room hotels and foreign investors that we must try to attract. We must develop our homegrown investors and attract them to get involved in boutique-type tourism. And when I say boutique-type, I mean boutique hotels, boutique attractions, with things that can be managed by Jamaican investors rather than just talking or shouting out about the 1,000-room investors. We really need to re-examine our whole approach to tourism and begin to look at it in a more holistic way and recognize that our main players that we need to be talking to and assisting and developing are Jamaican players or Jamaicans from the diaspora.
And that was your business report. I'm Joel Crosskill.
CVM News at 7 continues in a moment.
Anything for the taste of a KFC big deal. The time by KFC is
7:30.
Juicy, crunchy, irresistible taste of a KFC big deal, some people will do anything. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Come rise with sunrise. It's your midweek mighty takeover. We'll get started by stepping into our spiritual season with Father Holong in Wednesday service. Then we set our sights on the future with the Vision 2000 project. Calling all book lovers, we'll have you hooked from cover to cover in Sunrise Book Club. And we'll wrap things up with a furry treat in Wags. You've never seen a sunrise quite like this.
Our days get a little complex sometimes. Often so many things make sense, yet so many do not. We are being intentional about giving prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story explains who, what, when, where, why, and how. Lead Story with George Davis, weekdays at 6:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
Welcome back. It's now time for what's happening on social media.
So what's trending in our local social media spaces? Emergency responders rushed to the Halfway Tree Transport Center in St. Andrew yesterday after a man climbed onto the roof and allegedly threatened to harm himself. The area was sealed off as firefighters and police negotiated with the man, who eventually descended and was taken into custody. Here are some of your reactions. At Only J Official says, at the end of the day, we're human. At JR Law shares, enough man out here deal with some serious depression, but me just want to tell you say turn to God. At the Creek posts, enough of we have fight some silent battles and need help. At Cobidon adds, sometimes all you need is just a hug. At Tansy40 says, he has been crying out for help for too long. Someone needs to step in before it's too late. At Overjez writes, life hard, especially for a man who can't make ends meet in a society that makes your life seem worthless if you don't meet the status quo. And that's what's trending online today. Continue to share your thoughts with us on X at CVM TV. I'm Trisha Gay Kelly.